All right, well, let's go ahead and let's start talking some of these roster changes then, because I mean
let's do the Shox one first, because there's too much comedy packed into that one. We got
okay,
to come on.
Yeah, we could go. I was gonna try and hold out a little bit, maybe talk about Nip first or something like that.
Because here's the problem, man. I care too much about this. Literally, this is not an exaggeration. Literally yesterday, we were doing an episode of The Four Horsemen that'll be coming out soon. It's about the state of like the financial and business side of esports. And we had Tommy, aka Lurpus, as the guest, right? And so on this episode, at the end, we did the viewer questions, right? And there's one of the viewer questions, someone said, like, you know, what would make your day or something. So my joke at the time, because this is before the news had been announced, it was announced right at the time I was answering this question. My joke was I'd only heard Shox is making a project. So I said, it's obvious, isn't it? Apex gets cut from Vitality. So that means Shox is now free to make a team that is Shox, Kenny S, NBK, Apex, and who do you know is coming back? Existence. And we're only doing the lineup Thorin always thought should have existed, but never did. And we're just doing that. And it's a real Last Dance, right? Except we never played together, you know. But like, and the problem is, as I said that, someone pointed out, nah, you've got to look, it's just been announced. And they said, you can go watch this response when the VOD comes out. They're like, he's playing with Smithzz again. And at first I think they're trolling me, because it's like, surely not. Like, no, are you fucking with me? It's like, because that's the problem. It's like, bro, at this point in time, someone just needs to make a French remake where he's like, Edouard, I cannot quit you, bruh. Even though I am French and you are French, it's the one thing I'll never quit is you, Edward. Like, give me a fucking break. Give me a break. Because here's what I don't get. Mate, we all criticised him in 2016 when Smithzz was back. Then in 2018 when he came back as like a support. That's actually an area, by the way, where people were very critical of me. Because I famously said, like, why are you all bagging on Smithzz? And people did that thing, Semmler, where they ignore what you're actually saying and just make up what you said to be mad at it.
Sure,
so what my point I was making was, if Smithzz comes back to be like the bitch support player, he could probably do that role. He was, if people don't know, he was one of the great support players in early CSGO. My problem was when he was being the primary AWPer. That's a very different role.
Yes, that's a very different role.
So I didn't have a problem with like the comeback in 2018, but it didn't work out. It was shit. He was actually very bad. The idea you run it back in 2023, like, come on, bro. Like, I know he's Shox his best mate, but why does he have to be a player? Why can't he just be in the org and be the coach or some garbage like that? Like, if he's a player, the problem is this guy's. In the past, when we used to get mad at Smithzz playing with Shox, it's because Shox was at least amazing, right? So at least that evened out. Shox isn't even that good anymore. How's he going to play with Smithzz? The problem is when I just see those two names alone, Shox and Smithzz, like, right, next. Like, I'm like, right, what about that Kenny S and NBK project? Like, there's nothing here. This is garbage. Like, basically, unless some of these players I don't know are just like the next sick Zemu type player, does this team have any hope? Isn't it just nothing? Just the Shox and Smithzz love affair reunited again.
There is the
someone make a series, you know, that series that Richard Linklater made where it was like, you know, like Midnight in Paris, like whatever, like it was like there's that series where it was all about those Ethan Hawke and that fucking Julianne French actress meeting up. They meet up like 3 or 4 times and it's like a love. They should just do one of those about Smithzz and Shox just cannot be separated. They're just drawn back together throughout time. Like, this is mental, mate. This is too much. This is a vanity project gone too far. Too far. Although I will say, actually, I won't say it. There you go. I won't say it. There you go. What do you think about this move, Sam? What do you think about this project? Because I agree. Look, if you make it the abstract, like the concept Shox decides to make his own branded org, that's a great idea. He should have done that years ago. The joke is, after he got kicked out of Vitality, he probably should have done this move already. He'd be like a year ahead of the game. He could have gotten different, better players that we don't know. I actually think the concept's good. I just think the players they picked are a bit whack.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is perfect. This is perfect because I want to get your reaction on this because I was just like, okay, so who are these 3 new players that are going to be playing alongside, these veterans, Smithzz and Shoxy? Because I'm like, okay, fine, fair enough. You know, it's cool that Shoxy's getting together, and it's like I said before, you know, it's like Shoxy could put himself in a position to really try and just bring up the next generation of French talent, right?
Well, this setup's, or I can tell this.
I'd rather him be doing that than doing an international roster or whatever. Build up the French roster. Let's go, right? Okay. But then somebody mentioned in my chat, like, oh, but don't you know who Deos is? Paul Deos Neal, one of the guys who he's playing with. And I'm like, no, never heard of him. So this is a quote from him. I was banned on ESEA. I was unbanned only 2 to 3 weeks ago. I don't cheat now. I will join the team very soon, but I can't say anything about it yet.
So some Kaylee shit. Why though? Just why? That's what I'd have to say.
So they're bringing on a guy. Apparently, according to him, I think he's. I tried to look this up if he was still Faceit banned or not, but apparently he's unbanned on ESEA. Faceit streamer and player who got 6,500 elo. So I mean, you know, fucking A. Said that he was unbanned on ESEA 2 to 3 weeks ago, and he's about to join the professional team. He talks about it on his stream. So they're bringing on a cheater. or a guy who has a history of cheating at least. You know, maybe he's not cheating now, but he's apparently got a history of it. So it's just like, what the? There was nobody else. There's nobody else to bring on. What is going on here?
Worst part about that is, dude, this when I actually that's the other thing. If these were all like, oh, it's okay, Thorin, don't worry, like, you don't watch tier 3, but this is basically like the Monacy, Ziwu, and Wonderful of like French CS, and so they're going to be really talented. As you're saying, they're just guys like no one ever heard of. It reminds me of that scene. If anyone's seen the classic movie with the brilliant cast, Glengarry Glen Ross, where Al Pacino at the end goes absolutely mad on Kevin Spacey. He has some line where he just goes like, he says something like, I don't know whose nephew you are, because you know in like nepotistic organizations, you just give like your sister's kid some job or something. That's what this fucking team looks like. Like, did Shox just owe this guy money or something? Why is he playing in a team with him? And also, by the way, a really bad sign is, if people don't know, I saw there was the news recently. It's implied by, wasn't it the Heat players? It implied they haven't got, like, one of them's owed 100K worth of salary from last year or something. It was never paid.
Oh, that was, yeah. And then
I think it was Heat, right?
This is all where we're just like, nothing's been corroborated yet. I'm waiting for like an actual journalist like Richard or somebody to write this up. Somebody who will do the due diligence.
It was alleged then. Okay, right.
Apparently, apparently, like, then the owner of the team came out and like did this long explanatory post where he was like, listen, they're getting their salaries, but there was like something in the contract that they haven't been paid up at, and that's then there's like a bank issue or whatever, like basically just explaining the whole situation. But again, it's like, it's a screenshot of a Discord message and you don't know if it's him or not. You don't, like, there's no actual proof of anything.
Fair enough.
I'm waiting for a journalist to actually talk about that story. Somebody like
Really disturbing implication, though, yeah.
But I mean, yeah, no, it is. But dude, I mean, again, it's just, you know, that meme where the guy's got the noose around his neck, you know, he's like, first time, you know, or it's just like, well, welcome to esports, you know, where you're just gonna get burned. There's just gonna be guys who are, you know, there's gonna be teams who don't pay. There's gonna be TOs that don't pay. There's gonna be all sorts of fucking weird shit that's going on because.
Well, the other meme would be, it's the meme where you're all like tied up handcuffs, being shot one by one by the communists, and then it's just one guy in Heat, so pick a random player, just turn it. We can make it like Jax or something, turn it into like Joko, just going, you know, this is totally illegal what they're doing. Because that meme as well. That's another one of my favorite memes, except, you know, in the memes, you know, this is totally unconstitutional. It's like, who gives a shit? They're killing us, you moron.
Exactly.
Like, it's over in it. It's over for us, you fool.
Well, there you go. That's the Shoxy situation. There is a paragraph at the end of this article, actually, that I just found.
Do you know what's sad? I will say this, though, just to be on brand and keeping in with the narratives of by the numbers over the years. Don't worry, as bad as Shox is for never being able to quit Smithzz, I'm as bad for Shox. Because do you know what? I still hold a 10% chance in my heart that Shox can get really good again. I know he probably can't. Like I'm saying 90% it's not going to happen, but there's a 10%. I'll never give up that 10%. That 10%'s...
Listen, there's still, I mean, the thing is, I mean, it really does make you wonder, but I mean, he couldn't play with NBK. I think there must be too much baggage between the two.
There probably is. I think those two, it's not even, I think that they like hate each other. I think they're just like, it's a bit like me and Carmack, if that's a good analogy, because you know him, mate.
Water and oil.
We just fundamentally cannot get along. Like if we just had a conversation, we would just argue about, like, you know, what the fucking weather was. Like, we're just, they're like that as people. They're just naturally, they're chalk and cheese, yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame because that would have been an interesting sort of scenario.
Yeah,
where it's like
for sure.
Shox joins Falcons, and then you've got Kenny and BK.
I mean, you take my joke and make it a real life. Like, obviously, existence isn't coming back and Apex and get. But if you took my actual premise, it's actually not a bad one. Imagine Kenny has Shox and MBK +2. That's a pretty interesting mix, right?
Shit, just bring back existence. Let's go all the way.
Put Amanek in there. You can make a pretty decent 5. It's not even bad. But
you got Mistita in there too.
Here's what pisses me off, Semmler. That people do make garbage Last Dance projects like Imperial, but this is a Last Dance I want to see. The other one as well, by the way, I actually am going to make a video on this. Like, Last Dances that you would want to watch. Like, I'll give you an example of Last Dance I would watch. Do a real Fnatic Last Dance with, like, JW and Olaf Meister and Floyd. Who wouldn't watch that? That's cool. Doesn't mean they'll be good. If do a French Last Dance, do MBK. Why not? Why can't we have, like, a lineups that are actually, like, intriguing premises, you know? The other Last Dance was like, no, everyone knew that was never going to be good. It was nothing to watch, was there?
We're going into this phase now where it feels like a lot of teams are going to be in this kind of weird holding pattern, right? There's no like clear top dog. There's even rumors going around that Rain is going to be taking an extended break. I mean, he towards the middle of
he just had a kid, didn't he?
Well, exactly. So it's like he may very well be taking an extended break now, where he's going to spend time with family and have like a parental leave or something along those lines. Which, you know, fucking hey, good on him. I mean, he's been going nonstop for years and years, so it's like no problem there. If he wants to, but then that also means, okay, so what are FaZe going to do? It's not like they can reach out to JKS. He's on G2, so who are you going to bring in? Config is still out there. Like that's the one thing where it's like Config is still out there. He's not got a
I
contract.
have always said as well, this is a consistent point. You can go back years. I have always said, literally, Carrigan's the IGL I always wanted Config to have. Because I mean, I think unironically, if Config played for Carrigan, he'd be a top 10 player in the world. I'm telling you right now. Like he would just make the game so comfy, he would dominate.
Think about it from FaZe's perspective as well. They don't spend money on buyouts, and they don't want to. They want to do things in a reasonable way. They're probably concerned with paying the salaries, which are going to be competitive, but past that, that's it. Like they're not going to spend a dime more than necessary. So if Config's out there without a contract, you could bring him in for like a 6-month contract to play with FaZe while Rain is on hiatus, and then there you go. But again, it's not the
and it's a great culture fit. Here's why, Semmler, because actually the owners of FaZe will go, wait a minute, Config. We've looked into your background. You're like a bit of a fuck boy who can't really talk well and who gets too sort of caught up in illicit substances and could potentially either kick someone else's head in or got his own head justifiably smashed in. Welcome to FaZe Clan. Like they'd just be fucking relate instantly. Like, whoa, he's me. He me. It'd be like that meme. Like he me for real. Like the joke is they think he's in
the meeting and it's the Spider-Mans in a circle all pointing at one another.
Yeah, so then they're like, look, so we've seen you've had all these problems. So you're in, and now we've got one thing we want to ask of you. No social media, I'll bet. No, you've got to do this entire line before the end of the contract. It's like, come on, I'm race you. Come on. You put Mephedrone in man again. I wasn't in Navi. I wanted fucking pure shit. You're like that guy in Malta. Yeah, whatever. You get the joke. It's the way I fucking, if you don't know the reference there, I made Boomich catch a stray on that joke. If you don't get it, but whatever. If you know the reference, if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. That's all good.
Speaking of fucking Navi, dude, they've even gone this route as well. They brought in this guy NPL who to replace SDY, and you're like, okay, well, SDY, I don't know what what's the dynamic in Navi anyway. So it's like, it's just this weird, I'm in this weird spot right now where it's just, I don't really have a team that I'm super excited to see play apart from maybe G2, because G2, it's like, if you ever had a time G2, it's now. But like everybody else, all the top dogs, they've got a new player on, like Nip have made their roster move. They brought in Headtrick, Navi, they've got their 5th. Astralis have got this guy Buzz. So I'm not even super stoked to see Device play, because it's like, okay, it's going to be Device and Blame F. And then they're going to have to, integrate this guy who has no experience whatsoever. So if anything, it's kind of even, I guess, because you're going to have 4 experienced players on all these teams and 1 new guy. And so if anyway, in any sense, it's like they almost had a gentleman's agreement where they're like, okay, we're all going to fuck ourselves up for a bit of time, beginning into 2023. Okay, good. Shake. Yes. Okay. We're all going to make roster changes then, and it's just going to be chaos. Because that's what it feels like right now with all these roster moves, man. It just feels like you're going to have this weird ramp up period where either, like you pointed out at the beginning of the show, right? Either this gamble works wonderfully and you got a guy like Headtrick who takes off, or it is just that it's a gamble. You put it all on black and it came up red and you're fucked. And you're locked in, or you got to find some way to find somebody to make these changes, but there's nobody out there with experience that you can afford to get. It's like the CS scene is in like a really weird place right now in terms of like the elite teams. Not really sure what to make of any of this, right? If Electronic is the IGL, does Navi now regret not having Monacy? I don't know, Strobe. That's a good question, actually. No, I don't think so, because they've still got Simple, so you're not bringing Monacy.
They're never going to regret that. But the problem fans have is fans just think like, but we could have both. It's like, you can't really, like, one would just not have the AWP every round. Exactly. So unfortunately, it just wouldn't make as much sense. Like, here's the difference as well. And this is the most unfair thing people are doing with that. If you go back, I was quite critical of G2 getting Monacy in the sense that, like, I don't think it was ever a guaranteed slam dunk that you could know this guy would be the best. People are going to go, no, but he was, like, a bit like Zebu. Those are the greatest outliers in history, for fuck's sake. Like, normal players, it's hit and miss whether they make it, especially the first year. So actually, here's the difference as well. Navi didn't sell this Monacy at the end of 2022 and go, we'd rather not make both work. They sold a guy that was, like you're saying, was going to be a replacement for Simple and was way worse than Simple at the time. The difference is now, if you know how good Monacy is, maybe you would go, well, maybe I could be like the one person in history to make like a true god tier dual op. Yeah, now you'd gamble, but you couldn't know back then. Like, the actual deal Navi made, 600k for a guy who's never played tier 1 lands. I'd take that day. I would do that deal tomorrow, even knowing what Monacy was like. Like, it's just too good a deal. Like, the gamble for Navi is amazing there. The upside's incredible. Even if he ends up being good, it's probably a fair deal. And at the time, you thought maybe you were even ripping him off,
And there was a distinct chance of that as well, because the whole Na'Vi Academy team was built around supporting Monacy to make him look as good as possible. And so that's not saying that Monacy isn't incredibly skilled and all of that, but it's kind of like a Kenny on Titan kind of situation where it's like the whole team is geared towards getting you that op and supporting you. You get every grenade, right? Like, that's how Monacy got it on Na'Vi as well. So there is a gamble element to that, where it's like, okay, now you're going to put him onto a team where he doesn't have as many resources that are completely geared towards supporting him. You know, how well is he going to do? And well, it turns out, obviously, that, given the last year's performance, it turned out pretty well. Good on him. But there was always that element of risk, and there's still that element of risk with all of these these fifth men that these teams are picking up in the shape of like Head Trick for Nip. And Buzz for Astralis. Like, Buzz, there's no history on this guy. Like, there's hardly anything at all. So you're just like, okay, you couldn't have got anybody else in the Danish scene to play a fifth for Astralis? You had
That's
to
what
really
worries me
go?
about moves like that, Semmler, is like you're saying, what should happen logically, if that's actually like a shrewd move, is when the Reddit post is like Astralis to sign Buzz, all the top comments should be like, yeah, I've actually seen him in like tier 2. He's actually a legit player. Like, he's up and coming. Like, he is the guy. You never see that ever for player. That's how you know those ones are just plucked out of nowhere completely,
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Without a doubt. No, it really does throw you for a loop. And I guess from Astralis' point of view, maybe they just they put all of their money into getting Device back and paying Hunden's salary, and so they just didn't have any money left. Just no money left.
The old pantomime joke would be that, like, when they were in their big industrialist meeting where they have all the evil scumfox who run Denmark and politics, but they don't know anything about esports except Astralis. They're just okay, Nicholas, tell us the plan for next year. And he's like, well, the big problem for us, we had all these issues. And they're like, we need to get our Buzz back like we used to have, when we were the best. And someone's just written down in a note to the meeting, like, get Buzz. And then they've just gone, right, got him, got Buzz. They're like, you fucking idiots. Easy mistake to make. Pantomime joke, don't worry about it. It's not good.
It's great. That's the thing. It actually works.
It worked out in the end. It's all good.
All right, but I did set up the Hunden jokes that we could talk a little bit about. Yeah. I guess it was common knowledge. Was it common? I guess it was common knowledge. Obviously, the writing was on the wall when there was that whole thing of like, oh no, he's just creating content with the team. Yeah. For a sponsor, by the way, he doesn't have
mad props to Richard Lewis for the millionth time. He wasn't just guessing and he actually nailed what was going to happen. And if you go, but technically, Thorin, he joined as an analyst, not a coach. One, what's the qualitative difference in the actual game? Remember, we're at a point now at LANs and majors where you can't even fucking signal your own players. Like, analyst, as long as he's in the call, is the same as a coach. And then B, the most genius move that I saw someone on some other show point out was that this is actually even how people, terminology-wise, got around the original coaching bans. They just moved, like Twist is now the analyst events. So the joke is we've all culturally accepted that, like, actually, analyst's not that big a deal. So I think secretly he just is the coach, mate. They've just backdoored it. The Castle guy's the assistant and Hunden's the coach. It just seems obvious to me. It's just that this is a better political way to introduce him into the team. Because here's all you do now, Semmler. Say he comes into the lineup and you have a couple of good results. In 6 months, you just say you're promoting him to head coach, and then you've greased the path, haven't you? No one will complain then. You have the results.
Yeah. No, I think you're bang on the money. It's just a title at the end of the day. It's just like,
exactly.
It doesn't make sense to have it any other way on Astralis, and they've just found the most palatable way to put it forward. Now that the cat's out of the bag. There was even that rumor going around about like Copenhagen Wolves or something, coming back into the mix, and like Hunden would be there or whatever. It's just like, no, this was it. Hunden is back on Astralis. He is going to be calling it, and I mean, if it's the thing is that in the context of bringing Buzz on board, well, I mean, Hunden is one of the very best at finding talent and making talent work.
True. Yep.
So maybe we do need to kind of look and see, like, wait and see, take it with a grain of salt that Buzz is brought in with zero experience, because maybe this is one of those things that Hunden does where he's just been paying close attention to the Danish up and comers, and he's like, yeah, this Buzz guy doesn't have any experience, but he looks good. My eye test, he looks good. And if it's Hunden saying it, you're probably like, okay, well, it's not going to cost much. You don't have a buyout. You could probably pay him minimum wage. He's going to be fine. If you win some prize money, there you go, a little bit of extra change to throw his way. Costs, overhead is going to be super low for Astralis. So in that
It's
context.
a joke, Semmler. It's largely going to be based around how I phrase this. So listen, just take a seat. This is going to be a masterclass, right? Yeah, I agree, Semmler, because the thing with Hunden is we know from his career history and resume that he's really good at figuring out how to set up a player, whether that be in the server, getting them to where he wants them to be, boosting them up, or whether that's mentally getting them on the same page as him, that they agree with what his vision of what they're trying to do together is. But enough about when he fucked over Tesses and Nico. But there you go. Well done, wasn't it?
Boosting.
I nailed
that was
it.
a good
I
one.
nailed
I like
it.
that. That was good.
There you go. There's a
That was
reference.
solid.
And also, unironically, he is actually really good at those things for real. Like, he does seem like he's the best talent scout. And actually, I think the most underrated part isn't just the scouting. In my opinion, it's not just that he gets good players. It's that he does actually, for real, have a good sense of like what sort of player you should become. If people don't know, I think that's, by the way, that's the reason why, if we take the drama out of it, I agree with Astralis. This is the number one person I would sign, because Astralis at this phase of their careers aren't just signing the absolute best Danish player. They're trying to go between and have a couple of stars and a couple of cheaper people and make it work a la NIP. Funnily enough. So in my opinion, if you look at Hunden, the actual skill Hunden seems to have is sort of like figuring out this is who you should become as a player. Because think about who his proteges are. If people don't know, he was the one who brought into our consciousness Shush, Acor. These are the shit now. These are the players we're all watching win the events. And like, well, I know Acor did, but like relevant players. Like he helped shape these guys from like, there's a reason they were nobody before Hunden, because they hadn't had this process. So, unironically, I also think if you can get past the bad PR, and if one org can, it's Astralis, I think it's also a really good signing. Like, it actually is a good way to maybe have a chance to get back up.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to him being an analyst instead of a coach, so you don't even need to parade him around. He can be the coach. Doesn't have to. He can literally.
Oh, here's another good thing.
Out.
If he's an analyst, technically he doesn't have to do any interviews, because at this point in time, if there's one thing I'm saying, if I'm Astralis, is he will not be doing interviews. Hunden, like, he's fucking shitting them. He said all the wrong things on everything on social media. He's fucked them a million times.
Just leave it be. Let the other guy do the talking, and you just coach the team. You just focus on your job, coach the team, get it done, get Buzz into a good spot, get that team into a good spot, and let's see Device and and Blame F, take over the world essentially at this point, because it's going to be on their shoulders.
Oh, are you kidding me? So you know what Hunden's first name is, of course? Nikolai. So even his name has a lie hidden in it. Fuck. It's just perfect branding, isn't it?
I totally forgot about that. Holy shit.
Yeah, the three liars. You've got Nikolai Device, said he was leaving Astralis, Snape 5 steps ahead. You got Nikolai Nihom, the ultimate liar, the prince of lies, the devil. No, he's not even that bad. I'm making that sound cool. I know, I'm making him sound way cooler. I'm making him sound like he's like that bad guy in like Legend. You know, where like Tim Curry's character was like that giant, like Doom style demon. I was like, I'm Nihom. He's not even that. He's just like some shit side. He's just some grimmer worm tongue cunt, isn't he? So there's that one. And then there's Hunden, the third liar, the three liars. There you go.
I can't believe that this is how it's actually come together. It's like in the CIS region where everybody's a different variation of Daniel, which is, if you invert that, it's a Linad or whatever, right? So there you go. You always get that in that CIS region. They're all got the same name.
They all got the same fucking name, I know.
Such a trip.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.